Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to take a look back at a classic game that I played in my youth, and I played this mainly by mail. And this is called Luftwaffe from Avalon Hill. And this is the game of aerial combat over Germany of 1943 to 45. And I actually picked up a copy of this. I want to say was from Board Game Geeks, but it could have been off eBay too. Actually in pretty good shape, and you can still get these at a pretty reasonable price. Great game. I'm going to show you what's inside, and we'll talk a little bit about gameplay and how we used to play this game. Let's check it out. Okay, so let's open this on up. As you can see, this is a used copy. It has some wear marks around the edge there, but overall in pretty good shape. Again, this is Luftwaffe, the game of aerial combat over Germany, 1943 to 45. It's by Avalon Hill and copyright 1971. So it's an older game, and it gives a little introduction to it and then talks about the game a little bit, tells what is inside, gives us some examples of some of the planes that are represented by the different counters in the game there, and just a few of them, so a lot more. This particular game is actually a slipcase. So it has another box inside. So it has this case that is on the outside, which is heavy duty, and the way that they first started coming out. On the inside, this box here has the aerial combat table on it. So later on, they just put this as a separate piece of paper inside. But the nice thing about this, you can stand it up at the side of the board so that everybody can see it. But you know, having the paper was also good. So inside the box here, having the paper combat table, I should say, was also good. Inside the box here, the first thing you have on top is you have your map, and you see that the person who sold this to me wrapped it up pretty good. This map seems to be in pretty good shape, but we'll look at that here in a minute. We'll set that aside. And I got everything upside down here. Sorry about that. So the first thing we have is the designer notes, the campaign briefing, and these have, at the beginning, you have the designer note, then it talks about the campaign briefing and the war over Germany. And it gives some specs on all the planes here as you go through, different types, and gives a little information about the Luftwaffe organization, how it was organized, equipment of a German Air Force first line compared with 31 12 to 42. Units. So okay, so the dates from 39 to 42, comparing the units, how they improved. Aircraft identification marking talks a little bit about that. And the United States Army Air Force organization of it. And of course the Messerschmitt 262, the ME 262, the first jet-powered aircraft. Came very late in the war for Germany. And then all the bombers, gives a performance of the Air Force weapon, the bombing tonnage on you know, the amount of bombs that they dropped on stuff. Industrial areas got the most, transportation got the second most, oil, and bases. So they were key targets, were these larger numbers down here. And the targets, different target in Germany, and the Russian Air Force coming in, and P-51 and P-38 there. So that's the designer notes. And inside here we have the old catalog, the old Avalon Hill game price, which is kind of fun to look through. You know, see how cheap stuff actually was back then. For example, this game was $16. You could get a map board for $8. You get an extra counter set for $3 each. You get the rules for $3. So you could order extra stuff that, you know, you didn't have to buy a whole new game, which is kind of nice. So, a little nostalgia in this one. Here is the order of battle for, it looks like the German force, right there. And then on the back here we have the advanced game. And on this one we have the tournament game. And the advanced game has different school units, railroad units, so different types of aircraft, or different types of aircraft that are attack certain things for the advanced game. And then likewise we have an American order battle right there. And here's for the tournament game. And here's for the advanced game. And it shows that you remove from play certain planes or aircraft at certain dates. And here we have the German player counters. And as you can see, these are unpunched. This was an unpunched copy, which was kind of nice to get. And this game was unusual because it had round counters, which was kind of nice and different for most games. And we had time now, and then we have groups here of these aircrafts that have been stacked. You could use these markers here. So that's the Germans. They had a front and a back side when they were damaged or when they were hit. And here are our rules, but before we get to that, let's look at the last bit of stuff that's in the box here, and I'll make this a little easier for me to grab. And here are the American plane counters. And again, the front, and you got shuttle to England, so these turns sneak attacks. So you have certain things represent groups of planes coming in so that the Germans did not know what was in that group till they attacked it or got close to it. And here are the back sides. And here's your target sheet. The target sheet, you would select out targets for your mission, mark the path on the back here, and the damage, and this represents the board, which you'll see here in a minute. And we have all the planes listed here that you would mark off. So that's our target sheet, and there were a good pack of them here. And of course you had your Avalon Hill postcards that you could send in and give to a friend so they get the catalog. And let's first look at our rules of play. Now this is the way the rules of play used to come from Avalon Hill. I think Panzerleader, maybe before Panzerleader, but I remember Panzerleader was one of the first ones that I got that actually changed the style and made it to where it was more of a book. But this is more of a map fold out type of large piece of paper. But you had the basic games, game procedure, movement, how the units moved, how the bombing mission was, how the fighting mission, combat, and then you had optional game rules. So all you had to do was read this side to get started in the basic game. And then over on this side, you had the tournament game, which you would add to the basic game. And then you had the advanced game, which you could add these rules here, and then you had optional game rules to add to the advanced game. So it was basically a build upon learning the basic game first, basic optional rules. Then coming on over here, learning the tournament game, the advanced game, and then advanced optional rules. So you could play around of each game and learn them. It gives you a hint on tactics, how to fly your aircraft, and hints for the Americans, hints for the Germans, how to defend and how to attack. And over here is a kind of cool thing. It's the planes profile and data. And it gave you data on all the different types of aircraft that are represented in this game. So that is kind of cool information to have. And it was always fun with these, just folding them back up the same way that they unfolded. That was the fun part. But this you can tell this wasn't used much. This is in really good shape. So this is a good buy on my part, I think. And then finally we have the map. Now, so this is the map for Luftwaffe, and like I said, it got a little bit of flack because there was no terrain marking at all on it. It's just a white map, and it had your different targets there. It had railroad lines there showing railroad lines that you would eventually bomb. Had your start line here, and then over here, the Luftwaffe coming in here. But you had a 45 start line, and you had a 44 start line over there, and you had a 43 start line here, and then a 45 start line here. So you can see how the start line sort of encroached a little bit coming in later on in the war. But you come on into Germany, try to take out airfields, factories, oil, railroad line here, industrial. And that was your job, is to come in and take out all this stuff, bomb them, and then hopefully bring back your units. Fly in with escorts Some escorts had tanks, and when they had tanks on them, external fuel tanks on the wings, they would have to drop them when they got in aerial combat. Otherwise, they fought at a very big disadvantage. So most of the time, you would actually just drop them before the combat started. And then once you drop them, the aircraft would have to, the cover aircraft or your fighters would have to leave, and the bombers would continue on their mission alone. So a good strategy was to bring up the fighters early, cause the fighters to drop their tanks, then have the rest of the bomber group come in unescorted, where other fighters could come in and easily just pick them off. Not easily, but they could do more damage than they could with the fighters, because they always had to take out the fighters first. So this is the map. It's not a very big game board. So that's one of the nice things about it. And it gives a basic game American force right here, the starting, and the basic game German force starting. So you have your starting pieces right here. It gives the keys to the map here, which is not much in the way of key. And the fold-up map, they were kind of nice. And this one, you can tell it wasn't played much, so it's in good shape. So we'll put that back in there. And your aerial combat, depending on what aircraft were fighting what, you had different roles that you could get for it. You had city anti-aircraft and base anti-aircraft. Base anti-aircraft had a little bit more that it could do. Hit on 5 and 6s, where cities were only 6. So, and you just rolled a 6-sided dice, and however many units you had attacking, however many units would give you your dice roll there, a number of losses and casualties. Very simple aerial combat chart. So hopefully you like that. That's a look inside the Luftwaffe here. And while I got you here, I'm going to show you one more thing that I still have. And I did actually play this game by email, and I don't even think that we ever finished the game actually. But I remember playing it, and this was the forms that you could buy from Avalon Hill. It might even be listed on that catalog. But you would buy this, send it to the person, you'd mark your locations on the back here as to where everything was. You would put your name, conversion table, closing transaction date of the starting stock. So basically you list the stock, the starting stock, and the closing date. And when they got that paper for that closing date, they would start with that stock for the first attack, then go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one down. So let's say you started with, now let's say we used Apple. You start with Apple, then you go whatever was the next one down, and whatever the next one down. And then the person would cut out that paper, that piece of paper, and send it back as verification as to what the attacks were that you had. And of course you would get the paper and you'd see the attacks too, so you could tell too. But we'd fill this out. You'd have, this part is air-to-ground operation, air-to-air operations there. And then circle the T to show that you will drop tanks if your opponent does. So you'll drop tanks if your opponent does. If your opponent doesn't drop the tanks, which if you're an American and if your Germans come in, the Germans would always drop their tanks so that the Americans would drop their tanks and not be able to escort the bombers in much further. That was my plan anyway, that I could remember. Had comments down here if there was anything else you wanted to say. But this was our play-by-mail form. I think I still have 3 of these. So yeah, that didn't get used much, but I did tear off some. Anyway, that's my review. Well, not my review, my opening or look inside of Luftwaffe from Avalon Hill, the game of aerial combat over Germany in 1943 to 45. And if you like that, please do like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out quite a bit. Hopefully, see you on the next box opening. Thanks for watching.